redress of grievance. And I told you your right to conscience are supreme to the state. Revelations 18:4 is a warning, a dire warning, a tear-stained pleading with any left of mankind who might retain the last shred of God-given conscience or reason and tendency to self-preservation at the eternal level. Get out now. Sodom's destruction was a gentle test run. Number 6. If I am born by providence, will, intent, prerogative into a wild and free state of nature, whereby I exist and remain in full possession and enjoyment of all my God-given rights, which is his pure gift of birthright to all of mankind, then by what madness would I consent or desire to enter into any civil society or otherwise jurisdictional compromise or construct of man, whereby I am required to relinquish any portion of my Heavenly Father's original and pure gift of liberty? What must such a surrender do to the Creator-created relationship dynamic? As per his very stark and detailed warning contained in 1 Samuel chapter 8 of the Holy Scriptures against the specific construct of a man-based government, I can only but serve him and seek my protections, provisions, comforts, guidance, and security from his hand and his rule alone. I'll just clue you in on 1 Samuel 8. That's where the early Israelites wanted their own king. Samuel brought this to God's attention in prayer, and God said, don't worry, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me. 7. I am not at liberty as a creation servant, son of the Most High God, to subject myself in any degree, nor to otherwise affiliate with any body of men or earthly government thereof, which might, as a requisite, demand that I act or exist on terms contrary to conscience, or contrary to the written word and the commandments and admonitions contained therein. How can there be any pursuit of happiness in a society where the individual can be set upon and forced to contribute to godless principles, entities, or practices which run wholly contrary to that individual's conscience, faith, and religion? The ultimate tyranny is to coerce men, whether by force of one or by the majority in society, to contribute any portion of his God-given resources to the support of that which is an abomination to God. To do so puts that man in direct conflict with the will and principles of his Creator, and therefore such a demand no entity on earth has the power to command. Such is the nature and the character of the sovereignty of the individual in his own capacity under God, as no other man nor government of men is going to stand in his stead come Judgment Day. James Madison's First Amendment secures all of the principles and full protection thereof as the absolute American law of the land. Got one last serious consideration. I found that in my research, either everyone is fallible, or some researchers who are bringing these old documents to your attention can't be trusted at all. I came across a quote in a book that is very well written, and that quote was attributed to Blackstone, part of why I bought his books, and it was referenced as having been in 2 court cases. So I bought Blackstone's books, and I looked for that quote, and it's not in there. And it was referenced what page and what section and so on and so forth. It was a sound quote. The principles in the quote were sound in the law, but it wasn't in there. Well, what I'm getting at is what I learned to do, instead of looking at a case law, reference in a short quote, just go down to Nick Tensman's office in Canton and have him print me off the entire case. And I never did find that quote. But I found some extremely powerful information, having gone to the source. Now this case is called the Orphan Asylum Society of the City of New York versus Peter McCarthy. This has to do with a man who left his will to an orphan asylum because he was raised in that orphan asylum. He didn't want to leave it to his kids. His kids fought. So it's kind of an interesting case. You're thinking to yourself, well, you come almost understand why the kids feel the way they do. But the judges of this case go into grave detail on how it's that man's property right to leave his property to whomever he will. hope I can find the part I'm looking for, because like I said, this is an 1827 case, and there's some extremely powerful words in here. I usually, here we go. The very definition of municipal law limits the power of the legislature to commanding what is right and prohibiting what is wrong. If the legislator can restrain us as it respects our charitable donations, they may also compel us to make them. For whatever is subject of legislation may be commanded as well as prohibited. If the legislature can declare a device to the orphan's asylum invalid, they may, upon the same principle, make us pay tithes of all we possess. This is a free representative government, and one of the prominent features by which it is distinguished from a despotic one is the preservation and protection of individual right. For it can make no difference with the citizen what the form of government is that oppresses him and deprives him of his right, whether it consists of one tyrant and 160, if his suffering and deprivation are the same. And here he's quoting John Locke. If individuals give up any part of their rights by becoming members of society, it is that they may obtain protection for such as remain. And on the same principle that allegiance is demanded by the government, protection is claimed by the citizen. And if not granted, the original compact is broken. Protection is claimed by the citizen for his allegiance. If that protection is denied, the original compact is broken. Who here feels protected by their government in the last 50 years? Who feels like the government may have become parasitic to the rights of the people? Who here believes maybe that the government's become predatory to the very people themselves? This judge said the original compact is broken. Period. John Locke agrees with him. The last fourth of John Locke's book is all about the power to completely overthrow bad government. I got one last question, and those of you who know me and we've discussed this, don't answer. Does anybody know what James Madison did just as soon as he was done penning the First Amendment? He wrote the Second. Anybody catch the point I'm making? If they don't like the first, they can contend with the second. I rest my case. Questions?
Was the name of that court case, was that the Hale versus Hinkle, or was that something else?
Which one?
The one you just read.
This one is Orphan Asylum. Put your glasses back.
Oh, this was a. Oh,
yeah, the Hale versus
This
Hinkle.
was the
I didn't bring with
orphanage.
me.
I'm sorry.
The Hale versus Hinkle case, 1906.
That was the person in corporation.
That's the one. Yeah, individual
Right.
versus.
But this was the
corporation.
orphanage.
Yeah, the Orphan Asylum case was in 1827. Completely different. Now, while we're talking about that, I'll reference another case. There's called the slaughterhouse cases in the late 1880s. In the vicinity of which city has the Mardi Gras? New Orleans. In New Orleans, in the late 1880s, there was a group of slaughterhouses in the city who sued for recognition or equality because there were slaughterhouses outside the city that were getting away with things and they weren't subject to the same regulation. And it was all about U.S. citizenship versus white citizenship. The men in the city had those slaughterhouses were U.S. citizens, and the government was regulating them because they had the same status as corporations. And the men had the slaughterhouses outside of town, were free and independent, unaffiliated, and had no such regulation. If they harmed a customer, they were liable, but the state wasn't going to regulate them per se ahead of the fact. That's just another distinction between the U.S. citizen and the white citizen. I could go into that deeply, and I would like to at a later date, but I think I'll spend enough time tonight. So, any more questions?
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
I hope I got my points across.
Emma, you're gonna put all that looks.